Welcome, everybody, to On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. And today we're going to talk about January the 28th, 1986. The Chicago Bears win their first Super Bowl, first World Championship in a modern era, with a 46-10 nail-biter over the New England Patriots. I'm your host for On This Day, Mike Goodpastor. Make sure you follow us on the Grueling Truth on Twitter, at Grueling Truth. Now, the New England Patriots have been to, what, a million Super Bowls now, it seems like. Their first Super Bowl was in 1985. And then prior to the 1985 season, the New England Patriots had never won a playoff game in the Super Bowl era. The last time the team had even won a postseason game in any league was the AFL's divisional playoff game against the Buffalo Bills in January of 1964. The Patriots won that game 26-6. And to tell you how long ago that was, Lyndon Baines Johnson was President of the United States, and the Beatles had not yet played a show on American soil. You fast forward 21 years, it was the first full season of Raymond Berry's head coaching career, and his team, after starting its 1985 campaign, was 2-3. They entered the playoffs as an 11-5 team, where they went 9-2 over the last 11 games. A lot of that was due to Steve Grogan coming in at the end of the season for an injured Tony Eason. Now, if the Patriots wanted to advance to the Super Bowl, they were going to have to do it without one single game in Foxborough's Sullivan Stadium. The Patriots started off with a game at the New York Jets in the playoffs, who they upset. They then moved on and played the Raiders in L.A., another big upset. Craig James was a big part of this. Great running back on that team. Of course, he was part of the Pony Express back in the late 1980s with the SMU and quarterback Greg McElhaney and, of course, Eric Dickerson. They went to the championship game where they played the Miami Dolphins. Now, New England hadn't won in Miami. I don't know if they'd ever won in Miami, but it had been forever. And they came out and dominated Dan Marino and the Dolphins, winning the game. I think it was 31-14, which would take them to the Super Bowl. Now, the big question there was who starts in the at quarterback for him. Are you going to start Tony Eason, or are you going to start Steve Grogan? They made what I thought was the wrong choice by starting by starting Tony Eason, who was absolutely atrocious in the game, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Now, the 1985 Bears, on the other hand, entered the season looking to improve on a 1984 season that saw them go 10-6. They had upset the Washington Redskins in Washington to make it to the NFC Championship game, and then were throttled by the 15-1 San Francisco 49ers of 1984, one of the greatest football teams we've ever seen. Now, the Bears, of course, wanted to improve, but they did more than improve. They put together one of the greatest seasons in NFL history. The Bears won 15 games, just as the 49ers had the year before, and won their first 12 before losing on a Monday night to the Miami Dolphins, 38-24. One thing people don't remember is this was a game started by Steve Fuller, not Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon had some injury issues here and there during his career, which really shortened what could have been a great career. This is a team that, when you look at their season scores in 1985, this is a team that, surprisingly, in Game 1, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 38-28. Not a surprise they beat Tampa Bay, but looking back, you'd find it hard to believe that Tampa Bay could score 28 on them. Week 2, they beat the New England Patriots. They dominated them 20-7 in a preview to the Super Bowl we're going to talk about today. And then, of course, the big win in Minnesota, 33-24. They beat Washington 45-10. Tampa Bay 27-19. Once you get past the Tampa Bay game, they shut pretty much everybody down. They held the 49ers to 10, the Packers to 7, Vikings to 9, Packers to 10, Lions to 3, Cowboys shut them out. Falcons shut them out. You had the one game in Miami where they got beat 38-24. They held the Colts to 10 points. They beat the Jets, held them to just 6 points on a Saturday in Week 15 of the NFL season, and then beat the Lions 37-17. So outside of that loss and that last game of the season where they gave up 17, this was a defense that was dominating everybody. Now, we go to the playoffs, and they would play. The weird thing is the NFC was so good in the 1980s that you had the 84 49ers, one of the greatest teams ever. You had the 85 Bears we're talking about today, which would go down as one of the greatest single seasons ever. 1986, you had the Giants, one of the greatest teams ever. And the thing is, the Giants were a little young at this time, and they made it to the playoffs that year. And in the divisional playoff, they played, of course, the Chicago Bears. Now, the Bears' defense dominated the game, only allowed 32 yards rushing. They sacked Giants quarterback Phil Simms for a total of 60 yards. Simms was just 14 for 35 for 209 yards, while running back Joe Morris, the NFL's regular season touchdown leader, finished with 32 yards on 12 carries. Chicago's first touchdown resulted on a New York punt attempt from their own 12-yard line. The wind was blowing at about 13 miles an hour, and Sean Landeta completely missed the football. And Sean Gale picked it up, ran 5 yards for a touchdown. Bears quarterback Jim McMahon later threw 2 touchdown passes in the third quarter, both to Dennis McKinnon, to break the game open. But this was a really good Giants team that got completely throttled by the Bears' Rex Ryan 46 defense. Buddy Ryan. God, I can't believe it. Or no, it was Rex. No, it was Buddy. I'm just kidding. We got to give Rex a little bit of love because he'd never be half the coach's dad was. The NFC Championship game saw Eric Dickerson come into the game off of the greatest single-game performance in NFL playoff history. He ran for 248 yards the week before in a dominating shutout over the Dallas Cowboys. But the Bears' defense dominated the game by limiting Eric Dickerson at his 46 yards. They held Dieter Brock, the quarterback for the Rams, 10 of 31 for 66 passing yards. L.A. only gained 130 yards of total offense. Chicago quarterback Jim McMahon scored on a 16-yard touchdown run in the first quarter and later threw a 22-yard pass to Willie Gault. Kevin Butler kicked a 34-yard field goal, and then Richard Dent forced Brock to fumble. Linebacker Wilbur Marshall scooped it up in the snow and returned it 52 yards for a touchdown to finish it off. The thing that stood out to me in this game was the Rams were in this game in the first half. They were only down 10-0 and had the ball inside the 10. And for some reason, John Robinson ran the ball, didn't use a timeout. The clock ran out. The Rams got no points from that. And that pretty much killed this game. So the Bears go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans, which, you know, going in that Jim McMahon headed to New Orleans with that crazy-ass Bears team. Some things were going to go on. Of course, you had the mooning of the helicopter and all the other things that went with that. But Super Bowl 20, a lot of people forget this. The Patriots took, I believe, the quickest lead in Super Bowl history. And that was after Larry McGrew recovered a fumble from Walter Payton at the Chicago 19-yard line on the second play of the game. It set up a Tony Franklin 36-yard field goal, 1:19 into the first quarter. Now, the other thing about that was it included a drop touchdown pass from tight end Lynn Dawson, L-I-N, and Tony Eason in this game looked scared to death. And the Bears came right back, and a 7-play drive, 43-yard pass completion from McMahon to Willie Gault set up a field goal to tie the game. Both teams traded punts. Richard Dent and linebacker Wilbur Marshall shared a sack on Eason, forcing a fumble that lineman Dan Hampton recovered on the Patriots' 13-yard line. Chicago then drove to the 3-yard line, but had to settle for another field goal from Kevin Butler. And William Perry was tackled for a 1-yard loss while trying to throw his first touchdown pass on a halfback option play. And on the ensuing drive, Dent forced running back Craig James to fumble, which was recovered by Mike Singletary to 13. 2 plays later, Matt Suhey scored an 11-yard touchdown to increase it to 13-3, and the rout was on. This was a game that was over probably truthfully, before it even started. But at most, it would have probably been with the drop touchdown pass the Patriots possibly had and were only held to a field goal. And the game went downhill from that point. And Chicago would score another touchdown early in the second quarter to extend the lead to 20-3. Raymond Berry decided to become active and benched Tony Eason. Eason was 0 for 6 and was sacked 3 times. In his place, he brought in Steve Grogan, veteran quarterback, and he took over an offense that had amassed an amazing minus 36 yards at that point. The Patriots entered halftime down 23-3. The third quarter didn't go any better. The team continued to struggle on offense and was unable to stop the Bears on defense. New England gave up 3 more touchdowns, among them a 28-yard interception return and William Refrigerator Perry's famous 1-yard touchdown run that should have went to Walter Payton. They were down 44-3 before scoring on an 8-yard pass from Grogan to wide receiver Irving Fryer early in the fourth quarter. The final points of the Super Bowl 20, of course, were scored by the Bears, like most of the points were. This time, however, it was the defense which recorded a safety after Grogan was sacked in the end zone, the 4th time on the day that Grogan had been sacked. Overall, the Patriots were outgained 123-408 in their first Super Bowl appearance. They turned the ball over 6 times, surrendered 7 sacks, and the Bears' 46-10 win was the most lopsided Super Bowl to that point. It, of course, has been surpassed since then. Now, the Patriots season may have ended in defeat, but it was still a success. Because prior to opening day, few people believed that New England would be capable of reaching the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl. For the Chicago Bears, the season, I think, is what Bears fans and players and coaches expected. The problem was the next 5 years, they came up short. They came up short in 86 and 87 to the Washington Redskins. For some reason, they tried to make Doug Flutie a starting quarterback on that team, which an older version of Doug Flutie might have worked, but not the younger version. And, of course, Buddy Ryan left as the defensive coordinator, took over with the Philadelphia Eagles. And once you split up Ditka and Ryan, no matter what they would want to say, they weren't as good without each other. So on this day, January the 28th, 1986, the Chicago Bears win their first, and so to this date, only Super Bowl, with a 46-10 drubbing over the New England Patriots. All right, guys, make sure you check us out at thegruelingtruth.com. Follow us at Grueling Truth. We'll have on this day every day. I'm your host, my good pastor. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.